Hi, I'm Drew, and I'm an amateur model builder. I'm building a layout in my basement called the White River Line, inspired by the Frisco Railroad in the Ozarks. I've got a few different projects going on right now. I'm really kind of at a stopping point with my DCC install, although there's work I could do there. I've also got my switch machines that I could work on, and my lumberyard kit bash, as well as a whole slew of other projects that I haven't even started. But I don't feel like doing any of that stuff. What I'm in the mood to do right now is do some modeling over here at the workbench. Now my buddy Bob from the Frisco forums gifted me this AMB Caboose kit. And it's specifically a Frisco kit, which I don't run into too terribly often. And so this is what I'm going to work on in this video. So let's jump on into it. As usual, I started by taking a look at the instructions to get a lay of the land. They included some history, photos of prototypes, and detailed steps and diagrams. The parts are primarily laser-cut wood, a material I'm not very experienced with, but something I've been interested in working with. First, I'll start with the basic assembly of the car body. Removing the parts from the sprues, flats, blanks, what's the right word here? Well, it was easy enough compared to styrene, and in some cases, it was already done for me. Additionally, I found sanding the parts easier than styrene, and I'm not going to have to deal with ejector pin marks either. I'm using CA glue to assemble these pieces. I started with a medium thickness glue, but the end grain on the wood drank it right up without giving me any adhesion. Switching to the thickest glue I have worked well though. I also used a bit of accelerant to quickly set the glue once I had the parts in place. I'm using the subfloor just to keep the walls square. I'm not going to glue it in place right now. After the CA glue has cured a bit, I went back and reinforced these joints with Elmer's glue all. CA glue can be a bit brittle, especially when using an accelerant. Next, I added the wood paneling. These parts, as well as a lot of other parts, have adhesive on the back. It's relatively easy to adjust or remove and reapply these parts if you don't get them lined up correctly the first time, as long as you haven't pressed them into place. As I was applying these, I felt pretty nervous about breaking the little ears on the ends, and, well, I almost immediately damaged one. However, I think it should be pretty easy to rescue it. Next, I moved on to building the sub-assembly for the roof. I used the CA glue to attach the rafters to the headers. I didn't bother to reinforce these joints with glue all, as the structure itself should be pretty stable. Next, I attached the roof. This part is scored down the middle, and it needs to be gently bent along that score. I found that I needed to score it a little bit more, and this whole process made me nervous, applying just the right amount of pressure to get it to bend without breaking. I used glue all for attaching the roof to the rafters. I wanted a little bit longer working time to get the placement right. I suspect that the CA glue would have been fine too. I also found that I needed to add a little bit of CA glue to the edges of the roof to get it well adhered to the rafters. To complete this subassembly, I added the roof trim to the end. These bits were a little bit fiddly, and I found the best technique was to hold the part in place and then apply the glue. Next are the windows and doors. But I've got a decision to make here. The instructions call for pre-painting them. I'd rather paint them after adding them, but I can't paint it with the glazing in place. So I checked out some of the parts to make sure I could hold off on adding that glazing until later. The door will adhere to this backer piece, and the glazing fits in the hole in the backer. It'll be a little bit more difficult to add after assembly, but not a big deal. For the windows, the trim sits on the outside, and the frame for the glazing goes on the inside. So I can add the trim now, and add the glazing and frame later. I started removing the pieces from the blanks, although if I had it to do over again, I'd remove them one at a time as I assembled them. Adding the windows was pretty easy, if a little tedious. I pulled out my magnifying lamp, and this helped quite a bit. Moving on to the doors, adding the threshold to the door frame was straightforward. But I wasn't quite sure how to deal with the adhesive backing on the back part of the door. I started by peeling off the release paper on both pieces, and sticking the adhesive sides together. Although I'm not sure what I was thinking, because this means the adhesive on the back would show through the holes on the front piece. I ended up putting the back part of the door on some paper and trimming out the portion where the glazing goes. I suppose that works, but maybe I was supposed to just leave the release paper on the back side of the door? I'm not really sure. I got the door and trim installed. Next, I'm going to skip ahead a bit and add some more details on the body using the wire supplied in the kit. I'll start with the grab holes on the sides of the body. Getting the proper radius here while keeping that curve smooth is a little tricky. I tried making a little jig out of styrene, but the wire is a bit too springy for this to work well. In the end, using my fingers and comparing it to the template in the instructions seemed to work best. If they aren't perfect, that's fine. These things get a little bit of abuse over the years. I'm not able to do the handrails here on the end of the car just yet. I need to get some eye bolts, and I've had a little bit of trouble sourcing them. So I'll hold off on that. Next, I'm going to do a little bit of customization. I'm using this picture of Caboose 642 as my prototype. You notice it has some bars across the windows on the ends. So I'm going to add that using the brass wire supplied with the kit. I think I've got enough. Looking at the prototype again, you'll see that the grab holds on the side have a flat piece at the ends, where they're bolted to the body. I grabbed a strip of styrene from a packet of metal roofing from Evergreen. I don't really know what size this is, but 1x2 would probably work. I trimmed these down a little bit on the sides, and so maybe 1x4 would work as well. Now I'm going to assemble the cupola. This is similar to the body, with subwalls and fascia, and I use the same gluing technique as before, initially gluing with CA glue and reinforcing it with PVA glue. This kit has options for a steel cupola or a slant side cupola. My prototype is a slant side cupola. Now I'm in a bit of a quandary, trying to figure out what to do next. I want to get as much assembly done as possible before I start painting. I'm also going to add some interior details, including some lighting, and I'm trying to figure out the best strategy for that. Looking through the instructions, I'm going to do it a bit differently, but I want to be smart about it. I'm going to complete the cupola assembly before installing it on the roof, and I'm going to skip the glazing before adding the roof of the cupola. I'm already doing the window glazing out of order for the body. The only real consequence here is that it might be slightly harder to install the glazing this way. There's a wooden subroof and then a paper roof. The paper roof is supposed to fold down over the eaves to cover them, but the paper started to split on the ends as I attempted to fold it down. I decided to make my own roof out of 020 styrene. I temporarily glued the paper roof to it as a template for the screw holes that'll hold the railings that go on top later. I cut it down the middle and installed it in 2 pieces. I roughed up the back to give it some tooth and glued it in place with CA glue. Then I used a bit of Mr. Surfacer 500 to fill the gap at the peak and to smooth the eaves. I also stippled it on top to add a little texture. Now I'm going to add these trim pieces on the body. The instructions call for gluing the roof in place next, but I'm going to skip that for now. Instead, I'm going to add the paper roof. There's an option here for a steel or canvas roof. I'm using the canvas roof since that's what's on my prototype. The steel roof has battens at the seams, and my prototype doesn't have those. I've gone back and forth on when I want to add the roof walks. I decided to add them after painting. It'll be hard to get full coverage underneath if I install them first. However, I am going to add the supports for the roof walks now. My final step before painting is to stipple some Mr. Surfacer 500 on the roof. I feel like I've made some real progress on this piece, and this is a good stopping point for now. I'm still thinking through the interior details and the lighting and how that's going to fit into assembly. This isn't something I've done before, so if you've got any advice or links to resources, I'd sure appreciate it if you'd leave those in the comments. Well, it's fully summer now, and I'm slowing down a bit on my modeling to spend some more time outdoors. So I won't be posting videos as frequently over the next few months. I'm going to continue working on this piece, and we'll probably get back to my lumberyard project as well. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and those links are in the description below, along with a list of tools, supplies, and resources I use. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave me a like. It's the easiest way to support my work, and I truly appreciate it. And if you haven't already, subscribing's even better. Thanks for joining me, and please join me again next time as I continue modeling the White River Line.